everyone! Today we are making a cornflake tart.
I really need you to hear what I'm saying.
We're going to start off with the pastry base. We're going to blind bake the pastry. So in order to do that, we need to preheat our oven first of all. So the oven needs to be at 180 degrees, which is 160 fan, and that is gas mark 4. Always make sure that your oven is empty before you put it on to preheat. Because you know, I've had incidences in the past where I've left stuff in there and it's kind of burnt. Don't tell anyone. Shh, my secret. But I've got a tart tin here. I think it's about 9 inches in size. Shortcrust pastry, which is ready rolled. So you can also buy it in blocks. You can buy it frozen as well. So if it is frozen, obviously make sure that you defrost it beforehand. What you want to do is unroll it. Now make sure that you don't take this out too much in advance because it will go soggy, too like wet. So you want to make sure that your pastry is not too wet when you're handling it. So this I just took out the fridge like 10 minutes ago, and then it's ready to handle. Okay, so you want to take it out the fridge just like 10 minutes before you're ready to use it. Okay, so because it's already ready rolled out, all I'm going to do is peel it off the paper. Okay, and I'm just going to put it straight into the tin, and like I said, it handles really well at this temperature. Okay, so we're going to put it straight into our tin, and you might notice that some of the edges are a bit short, but don't worry because we've got overhang here, so we can cut that off and then we can put it on the side. Okay, this is, like I said, the easy version of doing it, and you can obviously make it more satisfying by making your own short crust pastry, of course, but this is the easy version. So as I mentioned before, we've got some gaps, so we want to fill those in. So I'm going to cut off some of the excess pastry from this side, and we're going to basically just jigsaw it together a little bit. Stick this one on this side. You can see I'm just going to make sure that I press it down so that it sticks quite well to the other pastry. You don't want any gaps. Okay, so now we're just going to press all around the sides of the tin just to make that the shape of our pastry case, and just press into the edges as well. As you can see, on some sides we've got a shorter overhang, and some sides we've got a longer overhang. So I'm going to trim it slightly, but I'm going to leave a small overhang like this. So I'm just going to trim it down so there's only about 1 centimeter or so of extra pastry. We don't want too much. So far it looks like this. The reason why we leave a little bit of an overhang is because the pastry tends to shrink a little bit as it's baking. So we're going to leave a little bit of that excess so that it doesn't shrink too low down the sides. Okay, so it's important to do that. Prick the base of the pastry. So as you can see, we've put marks in the pastry. Now we're ready to fill it. This baking paper comes with a pastry, so we're just going to use this baking paper. There's no point getting extra and using it, but if you didn't have baking paper with your pastry, or you use like your own pastry you made your own, you basically want to cut your baking paper big enough to fit into your tin, because we're going to put it on top and then we're going to fill it with baking beads. Okay, and that is going to help us blind bake our pastry. I'll explain what that is in a second. So I'm just going to push this into the pastry so that it's nice and covered. Cut off the excess paper. These are baking beans or baking beads, whatever you call them, and they are basically ceramic beads that you can reuse over and over again. They get really hot in the oven and they weigh down the pastry to stop it from rising. So whenever you make a pie or a tart, you'll usually use these to blind bake your pastry, just to help it bake flat and then bake in the shape that it is and retain its shape without it bubbling up. We're going to fill our case with the baking beads. Just spread them out. If you don't have these, then you could just use rice or lentils or something like that instead of these. But obviously just be aware that you can't eat that rice or lentils again, so you might want to just keep them separate just for baking. And that's ready to go in the oven. So we're going to put it in the oven now for 15 minutes. While that is baking, we're going to go ahead and prep our mixture for our filling. Just need any kind of saucepan and a scale. Putting the saucepan directly onto my electric scale just to make it easier to weigh everything into one thing rather than using multiple bowls. That is what I like to do. Using salted butter for this recipe. There's a lot of sweetness involved in the filling, so there's obviously jam, there's golden syrup, there's sugar. So just to cut through that sweetness a little bit, I'm using salted butter. You could use unsalted butter if you want, that's absolutely fine as well. I just prefer using salted butter. We need 75 grams of salted butter. So we're just going to put our scale on, put the butter into small cubes, and then add it into the saucepan just to make it easier to melt, because we are going to melt it into the saucepan. Okay, so 75 grams. We're going to weigh in our golden syrup. So you either get that in a tin or you get in a squeezy bottle. I just find it easier to use from a squeezy bottle, which is why I've got the squeezy bottle. So scale back on 0, 125 grams of golden syrup. Hate that noise. Now we're going to add in our brown sugar. So put your scale back onto 0 again. Light soft brown sugar, 25 grams. So now we're just going to melt this on a medium to low heat. The saucepan is on a medium to low heat, and you're basically just going to melt down everything that's in here. That is done. Okay, it's melted, the sugar's dissolved, and it's not boiling, okay? Everything's just melted together. Leave that aside for a second. We are going to get our scale back again. Large mixing bowl. You want a large mixing bowl so you can mix this easily, because otherwise it's going to be hard and you're going to have cornflakes flying all over your kitchen. And 150 grams of cornflakes. I decanted mine into my lovely vintage metal. I've seen this on my stories the other day. So we have cornflakes in here. 150 grams. So our syrup mixture, while it's warm, goes onto our cornflakes. I want to make sure they're all coated, okay, with the syrup. So this will help them stick together as they bake in your tart. There's our lovely coated shiny cornflakes. Our pastry has been in the oven for 15 minutes now, so that's ready to come out. So just be careful, make sure you use oven gloves because the tray will be really hot. And just carefully take it out of your oven. Okay, so the ceramic beads in this are really hot, so please be careful with these, okay? Okay, so we've got that there for now, and then I've got a little bit of a tip for you. I'm just going to get a heat-proof bowl. Lift out the baking paper from the corners, okay? So we don't touch the beads, make sure you don't touch them, they're really hot. Okay. Beads up in the paper, and then just put them into a heat-proof bowl. And let them cool down completely before you put them back into the container that you took them out of. See, it's still a little bit raw, so what we need to do is bake this for a further 5 minutes just to crisp up that base a little bit more, okay? So that goes in for 5 more minutes in the oven at the same temperature. Cornflakes, let's mash them down ever so slightly. So some people obviously would like them bigger, some bigger and some smaller. So what I'm going to do is break some of them, and then I'm going to keep some of them how they are. First thing we're going to prep for this recipe is the jam. Now, you could be all posh-nosh and make your own jam at home if you want to, absolutely. You can make the pastry from scratch, you can make the jam from scratch and be a pro and do it all from scratch, absolutely. Again, this is the easy recipe. We're doing the shortcut version. So we are doing ready-made jam. Scale, small bowl. Why am I weighing out the jam? Now, 1 is so that you get even amount each time, and 2, because the jam is quite set. So what I like to do is weigh it out into a bowl and then give it a good beating with a spoon, and that just makes it a lot easier to spread the jam. Okay, so I'm using strawberry jam. Again, you can use raspberry jam. I like to use seedless jam. You can use seeded jam. You can use preserve, whatever you fancy. And it's 125 grams of jam. So as you can see, it's jelly-like. So we're gonna kind of beat it to make it easier to spread. The jam is ready to go. So the 5 minutes is up on the pastry in here now, so we can take it out. That extra 5 minutes has basically cooked the base. We want this to look nice and neat. And as you can see, we've got overhang, we've got extra pastry. We're going to press the sides to get rid of that excess pastry, okay? So just press down with your rolling pin on the sides. clear up. Go in with our jam. Put that all in. Use the back of your spoon or a spatula and just spread it evenly on the base of your pastry. Bring that cornflake mixture that we prepared as well. Bung that all in. Spread that evenly into our tin as well. You can press it down a little bit more. And that is basically ready to go in the oven again for another 5 minutes. Smells absolutely outstanding. Ooh. Leave it in there about 10 minutes before you try to remove it. Right, so remove the tin. So I've got this cake removing thing, so I'm just going to put that underneath and I'm going to remove it off the base plate onto the chopping board. The finished tart. That's it from me for today. Take care of yourselves, take care of your families. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.